Stupid Jefferson. Idea stealing, Tesla killing, elephant electrocuting. Edison. I'm thinking of Edison. He was not the kite guy. I have nothing against Thomas Jefferson. Yes, I do! The slavery! Benjamin Franklin is not who I thought he was. Meaning first, I got him mixed up with Thomas Edison, then I got him mixed up with Thomas Jefferson. I didn't get the Thomases mixed up. I have no idea why I got Jefferson mixed up with them, but I got his name right during my Google searches, so the information I have on this guy is as correct as you're gonna ever expect in this channel. Let's talk about Benjamin Thomas something name, this guy.
Who are you?
Benjamin Franklin was born January 17, 1706 in Boston to Jobiah and Abiah Franklin. Abiah was Jobiah's second wife. He had 7 children in his first marriage and 10 with Abiah, making Benjamin the 15th out of 17 siblings. Benjamin didn't have much education, with his formal schooling ending when he was 10, and he became an apprentice to his older brother James, who was a printer when he was 12. And while he was working for his brother, Benjamin began his first stint in rebellious writing, when he began writing essays under the pen name Silence Dogood, and slipping them under his brother's door so he would print them in the paper. And I have to wonder, did people realize it was a pen name because Dogood isn't that weird of a last name? And I feel like Silence would totally fit the puritanical naming conventions like charity, chastity, humility, that very much fits the vibe of colonial America. I could probably figure that out, but I've already had enough naming confusion for this video. Moving on. Hey! I interrupt this video to tell you about my book, Phantoms of the Inferno, an epic high fantasy with espionage, evil kings, mass extinction events, and shady magical conspiracies. If that sounds interesting, go read Phantoms of the Inferno on Scribblehub and Wattpad. Book 1 is up, and keep an eye out for announcements because Book 2 will start uploading later this year. Franklin worked for his brother until he was about 17, when he ran away from home to Philadelphia, and once he was there, he began working for another printer, wrote his family to explain, "Hey, I'm fine, P.S. I'm Silence Dogood, sorry James," and he met his future wife, Deborah Reed. And while Franklin was there, the governor of Pennsylvania, William Keith, noticed Franklin and offered to send him to England for work. But Keith got around to actually putting Franklin on a boat, but not sending the necessary correspondence ahead, so when he got to England, no one knew who he was or why he was there. So Franklin did his thing and started working in a printing company, and he worked as a printer in England until 1726, when he came back, reunited with Deborah Reed, who had married by then, but her husband ditched her after her dowry came through, so she and Franklin became common-law married, and ended up having 2 children, Frances and Sarah, and they also raised Franklin's illegitimate son, William.
What happened to boys will be boys.
And to veer off about his children, Benjamin had a falling out with William during the Revolution, because William was a loyalist, but Franklin at least stayed in touch with his illegitimate grandson, William Franklin Jr., who later went around Europe touring with his grandfather and working as his secretary. As for his second son, Francis, he contracted smallpox when he was 4 and died, and Franklin said, "In 1736, I lost one of my sons, a fine boy of 4 years old, by the smallpox taken in the common way. I long regretted bitterly, and still regret, that I did not give it to him by inoculation. This I mention for the sake of parents who omit the operation on the supposed that they should never forgive themselves if a child died under it. My example showing that the regret may be the same either way, and that therefore the safer should be chosen." I just think that's a good quote and so tragically topical. And lastly, on his daughter Sarah Sally, she lived into adulthood, had 7 children, and helped care for her father later in his life when he got sick and eventually died.
I'm sick.
But Benjamin Franklin did more than just print stuff. He was also an author, inventor, delegator of the Constitutional Convention, first Postmaster General, founded a public school that eventually became the University of Pennsylvania, founded a hospital, created the first fire station in Pennsylvania, was the first to propose daylight savings, the bastard, and he was a diplomat. And I read through all that and I was like, when did this man sleep? He did all this and had a bunch of kids with his slaves? Jefferson. That was Jefferson. Franklin did have slaves, but he at least didn't have kids with any of them that we know of, so...
Not as much of a jerk as you could have been, Award.
Anyway, going least to most interesting by my objectively correct opinion, he published, printed, and wrote a lot. He wrote Poor Richard's Almanac and feuded with Titan Reeds over it and used it to be petty, and he also published the Pennsylvania Gazette, which became the most popular newspaper in the colonies. History is written by the winners, and Franklin published it. And he also helped draft the Constitution and signed it. And he helped form and sign treaties with France that helped get their support during the Revolutionary War. And it was probably due to their help that we even won the war, even though Franklin never actually fought in it. And Franklin was also an inventor. He's most famous for his kite experiment, where he tied a metal key to a kite with wet hemp and silk cord. So when the kite went up into storm clouds, the lightning moved down the hemp rope and sparked when it reached the key, proving that lightning was electricity. And it was probably the electricity of it all that had me confuse him for Edison. And after the kite experiment, he went on to invent the lightning rod, as well as bifocals, the Franklin stove, glass harmonicas, swim fins, and medical catheters. And the part that most shocked me, because I thought he was Jefferson, was that he was an abolitionist. He spoke with, I believe it was King Louis, about abolishing slavery in 1787, became president of the Pennsylvania Society for promoting the abolishment of slavery. Again.
Not as much of a jerk as you could have been, Award.
Franklin eventually died on April 17, 1970. For several years his health had declined until he finally passed away from pulmonary abscess in his home in Philadelphia. So there are two big pieces of writing advice I want to touch on. The first is the complexities of war and how wide-reaching it is. We owe a lot to France when it comes to the Revolutionary War, and France, from the sounds of it, were on our side as soon as we said we were sick of England, and that's beef that goes way back. Basically, war is complex, and it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't matter if it's a revolution or a civil war or just a resource war. There are treaties and histories and old grudges that will pull people from all over the world into it. And if you're writing war, it's worth adding characters who are from different places and explore the complex geopolitical histories your world has. It will make your world feel bigger and more immersive. And also, figuring out a complex history and treaties between countries is a great way to procrastinate actually writing.
I'm a writer.
The second piece of writing advice is how important it is to be able to pivot. Some writers write a story and it just goes how they want it to. I'm pretty lucky. For the most part, my characters do what I want. It can be a pain getting them to say what I want when I want, but the plot happens pretty easily. Other writers have a lot of trouble wrangling their characters, and the characters end up taking control of the story. And I know there's debate that basically boils down to, you're the writer, you're in charge, take charge. And honestly, I think it just depends on what kind of person you are. Not good or bad, more like dog or cat person. Some people will have well-behaved characters, and some won't. And if you have poorly behaved characters, you have to know how to pivot. Like how I had to pivot this entire video when I realized I had no idea who Benjamin Franklin was. Or you might have to pivot even if your characters are well-behaved. You may come across new knowledge that makes it so a plot point is impossible. Like in The Martian, turns out you can't eat potatoes you grow in Martian soil. You will get sick and die. You may give your characters a trait that comes back to bite you. Like you say they can't swim, forgetting your climax happens on the ocean. Or you may get feedback that certain plot points are confusing or characters are unrelatable. Either way, knowing how to pivot is important. And the best way to do that is to remember you can always rewrite. Let your characters and story do what they need to get the words down on paper for the first draft. And you can always go back later and insert plot where it may have been lost, remove plot points, add characters, or do anything else you need to do. Just get it down now. Put it aside when you're done and come back later with fresh eyes. It's amazing the difference a little bit of distance will give you.
I can't see!
And that's all I got. I wish I had more writing advice on Benjamin Franklin, especially because he was such a prolific and important writer, but honestly, I'm still reeling from the Edison-Jefferson fiasco, and the turnaround on these scripts is too fast for me to come back with fresh eyes. Just know that Benjamin Franklin was an interesting guy who did so much, and don't forget to read and write.
I'm at a really awkward spot because I sat down and a cat came to sit on my lap and I wasn't able to get any more in position.